Lennon.
Yeah, that's me. Hello.
Yeah, hello, Lennon. And hello, listeners. So, Lennon, I want to ask you a little question. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Ooh, I'd like the superpower to be able to change sizes of any part of my body at any given moment. Okay. And as long or as thick as I'd like it to be.
You're talking about your peen, aren't you?
No.
What about if I tell you, would you like to have no powers?
Oh no, that's the worst, especially because I'm not rich or smart.
That's it, buddy. We're talking about Tony Stark today, the smartest dumb person on the Avengers. Because today we are going to tier rank. Oh, I got to explain the rules of this thing again. God damn it, these rules are so complicated. I don't know how the audience is going to get it, Lennon. So today we're going to go tier listing all the appearances of Iron Man in each of the MCU movies, but we're capping it at A because I want to argue with you at the end of the video about what the true S tier really is out of all these movie appearances. Are you ready, Lennon?
Yeah, I'm so ready. I love to argue.
Sweet. Okay, excellent. Well, let's just get on the same page or opposite pages, or just let's get on a page of a book. Lennon, what do you think makes a good Iron Man?
Whew. Well, thank you so much for asking me that, Hesher. I would say
no last names, buddy, but yeah, go on. Dox me in front of everyone, now they know my address. Anyway, yeah.
I made that mistake with David last night. So I would say that a good Iron Man is a flawed character, someone who's obviously a genius, super rich, and his moral compass leans good, but he's a fuck up. He makes a lot of mistakes, and he has a lot of trauma that I think that he is trying to work through, and he's got the best intentions, but he just makes really dumb decisions sometimes despite being so smart. What's your interpretation?
Me, I pretty much agree. So like I grew up around the Civil War era of the comic books, in the Marvel comic books. If you didn't know, the MCU is based on comic books, and he was a villain in that. He was pretty much a bad guy. It's sort of close to the Civil War that we get in the movies. And I think that interpretation of Tony has always been one of my favorites, where he is incredibly smart, he is a genius, but he just makes really, really bad decisions. Even if you want to go earlier than that, you've got the demon in the bottle storyline where he struggles with alcoholism. Like, it's a through line of who Tony Stark is as a character. Is he is super smart, but he's also a dumb idiot sometimes. That's what I like about everyone around me, including you. But
oh wow, okay, wait, which one?
What?
What am I? What trait am I?
Continuing on. So we're going to go through these movies in sequential order from release. First one is Iron Man 1. Where in our ranking system would you put Iron Man 1, Lennon?
Oh god, so I think that Iron Man 1 is a tough one because I feel like this is one of the only occasions throughout the MCU where we get a full arc or a hero's journey. In the later movies, it's the MCU relies on the fact that we already know who Iron Man and Tony Stark is specifically within the MCU, whereas in this movie we have who he was before he basically made the decision to basically become Iron Man. We see his ingenuity, but we also see his arrogance and, you know, who he was before he essentially became Iron Man himself. But I think that this is a really well-rounded portrayal of Tony Stark and Iron Man. So I reckon straight off the rip, I think this is an A for me. Yeah. What about you?
I agree. So this Iron Man, to me, it's a great intro to the character, but we do have him at his most brash. He's still drinking, he's still womanizing. This really is the Iron Man that I sort of know from the comics most accurately. And I mean, I don't know if you know this, but before the MCU came around, Iron Man was sort of a B tier comic character. I mean, he was always on the Avengers, but like he wasn't really like someone that would sell comics, or, you know, before the MCU, it was sort of the main superheroes from the Marvel universe was, you know, it was Wolverine, Hulk, Spider-Man. This really turned it into, you know, Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man, obviously, as the head. But all in, I think this is the movie that cemented that. So as props to making Iron Man iconic, I think it belongs in A tier. Moving on to Iron Man 2. What do you think about this one?
I'll also just quickly clarify, if we hadn't in the intro, but we're not going to cover his little cameo in The Incredible Hulk,
no,
because that's like one scene, and it's just like Robert Downey Jr. just doing Robert Downey Jr. But in Iron Man 2, I would say, I feel like that's kind of like a dark spot in, I guess, the MCU saga for me. I think that there's obviously a lot of pressure and tension building up in this movie. You know, he's very self-destructive. the drunk Iron Man birthday party scene is like a standout in my mind, but also he's just coming to terms with his mortality as he's like slowly being poisoned essentially by this, is it palladium or something like that?
Whatever it is.
Yeah, and I feel like he's more of a fuck up in this movie, but
it's boring.
And he's more, he's more desperate in this movie, but I just think overall this is like a really boring depiction. So
yeah,
if I was to put it anywhere, I would probably go C.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Because like, as much as I said earlier that I like a Tony that's sort of, making bad decisions or is just a little bit irresponsible, there's no arc in this where that really feels earned. I don't know. It's
just annoying.
Yeah, there's better examples of what I like about Tony in later movies. So to be honest, I had this one in a D tier.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We can just chuck it to C. I'm happy with C. Either way, it's not in the contention for the best. So that's fine.
How about this? I reckon let's just slot it in the D tier because I don't know if there's too many other depictions that would sit in the D tier. So just for the sake of having it there,
you just want to have him lonely and by himself.
Why not?
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Make it measured. I'm gonna get into my thoughts. I'll take the lead on this one. I'll get into my thoughts on the Avengers 1. To be honest, I do like this, but I feel like the weighting of Tony's character arc wasn't as prominent as he is in some of the later ensemble Avengers movies. It would feel wrong for me to put him in an A tier, even though he does have a lot of great moments. Like the argument with Cap, it sets up their relationship really well. That has great payoff in later movies. He does do that big sacrifice play at the end that, is directly related to the argument that he had with Captain America. But I just can't feel great about giving it an A tier. So I had it sitting at B.
I was going to say B as well, because I think with his depiction in this movie, he needed to be that irritating, brash, kind of egocentric character that's constantly being chipped away at by his peers, like, obviously Steve Rogers and stuff like that throughout the movie. And I feel like at the start of the movie, and more specifically at the end of the movie, I think this is some of my favorite Iron Man Tony Stark moments, especially once, they do that little circle shot and then everything in New York, in the Battle of New York, Tony is like, all right, we've got to think like a team, and he's like threatening Loki and all that stuff. And I think that is just such really great moments for this character, and he drops the ego and becomes like one of the team, and I think that is where he's at his best for me. But the rest of the the movie is almost like he's just intentionally trying to antagonize everyone just to push their buttons just to see how far he can go. And
yeah, he pisses off Thor the first minute they meet, like, what is this, Shakespeare in the park? And it's like, bro, what is your problem?
The Joss Whedon-isms, it's just it's annoying. But so I agree. I think B. Cool. It's like the best moments here are an A and the worst parts are a C, so meet in the middle. Let's go with a B.
I like that. Iron Man 3, I like this damaged version that we get in Tony, and I think this is obviously the most Tony without the suit movie that we get, which I think, deserves its graces. I think that's really nice. It proves that, he's a genius even when his suits are on the fritz, and is still capable, so, earning his superhero spot, that is not just a guy in a tin can. I think it follows the themes of the Avengers really well with his PTSD. As I said, I like a Tony that's going through something, and this is really starting to plot those seeds that, he's gonna make some bad decisions. But in the end, I also put this at a B tier just because, yes, it's putting a lot of the seeds that pay off really well in later movies, but it's not those payoffs. It is just planting the seeds of his anxiety and his concerns about, Thanos's fleet incoming and all that sort of stuff. Those are paid off in other movies. This isn't a full arc by itself.
Yeah, it's interesting that you put it that way. When I was thinking about this movie, I was just trying to think to myself, like, what's missing here? Like, why can't I kind of properly identify like Tony Stark or like where I want to put him? Because I do really like this movie and I think it holds up incredibly well. But I do think that, yes, this is more of a case study or an observation on Tony Stark rather than Iron Man.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's him overcoming this mental battle rather than this physical battle of stopping death in the second movie. And it's an incredibly compelling movie. But yeah, I just think as far as like Tony Stark and Iron Man, the two sides of this one character, yeah, it just feels like it is missing a little bit. It was the perfect time for this movie to explore a story like this because we sorely needed it. We needed something a little bit different. But yeah, I'd be happy to put it in B.
B? All right, we'll chuck him in B. Next up, Avengers Age of Ultron. We'll go with you. What do you think about Avengers Age of Ultron, bud?
This one's annoying for me because I feel like he doesn't stand out as much. He's just more of the annoying character from the first Avengers movie for me. Like the character change, or the character growth, I should say, from the first movie, I feel like he almost just kind of does away with that. He acts selfishly. He doesn't act like the team. And again, this kind of goes back to what we said at the start, where he kind of makes decisions out of desperation, which is within his character. But it doesn't mean that it isn't annoying, especially when we see it for like the third or the fourth time now within the series. And I understand that he makes this decision to go ahead with creating Ultron behind the backs of the rest of his team, and he's doing it with the best intentions. But I just find him to be a lot less likable in this movie. So I think for me, he's probably in the C tier for this movie. What do you think?
Damn. All right, this is our first big argument. I had this one. I had this guy in the A tier, but I might be poisoned because Ultron in the comics was created by Hank Pym, and Hank Pym is
I feel like you really like this movie.
I love Ultron, to be honest. He's one of my favorite comic book villains, but. Yeah, I mean, he's created by Hank Pym in the comics, and Hank Pym is known to be a lot less likable, and well, a lot of the time, not all the time. He has been known to be he hits the wasp. He hits his wife, so not a very not a likable guy. That's a bit of a bummer. But maybe I guess like some of his more stubborn characteristics are maybe what they're emulating in Tony, because Tony sort of takes the MCU spot as Hank for the creation of Ultron. I still really like it as a payoff to the 3-story arc that we get from Avengers to Iron Man 3 to this. It really is like his anxieties peaked to 1,000,000. And also, as I said at the top of this video, you know, that Civil War sort of comic era, I do like when his genius gets in the way of his moral decisions and he just almost acting out of his trauma does the unthinkable, which is something I've always liked about Iron Man's story. And I think this is maybe one of the strongest examples of that, because he literally creates a death robot capable of destroying the planet. So I don't know, for me that's still A, but this is a group assignment. We can meet in the middle. We can put him, where'd you put him?
I did put him in C, so
B.
we can always meet in the middle and go B.
All right, well that's heartbreaking for me, but what were your thoughts about Captain America Civil War?
I really like in this movie how you can see both sides, and it's not like, even though this is a Captain America movie, and I feel like we're slightly meant to lean more towards Cap, I think that Tony Stark's reasoning and why he would want, like, he wants to make amends, I feel like, for everything that happened in Sokovia, everything that happened in the previous movie, and he's guilt-ridden, and he's trying to control the chaos that he unleashed on the world, and he's got the best intentions, but again, it's like, rather than trying to make a rash decision with the best intentions, he's now doubling down in the other way and trying really hard to just get everyone in check, even if it might be, you know, not via the best methods. So I think that his character was really compelling. I think the Iron Man moments were really great. I love his interactions with Peter Parker and how he's like talking about how ridiculously hot his Aunt May is and all that stuff. I thought it was just really funny. But the humor for me throughout this series, it's starting to work more and more now that we're getting past that Joss Whedon era. So I just think that I think it's an A in this movie for me.
I'll agree. I think there's one thing that we haven't really... So we talked about that argument between him and Cap. And that is, you know, a big part of this movie is where they stand on the Sokovia Accords. And that is, I mean, I've been gassing up the Civil War comic book this whole video. It would be crazy if I didn't put this in A tier when we got to it. I do really like this, obviously. I think as they did as best they could, because obviously in the comic books there's way larger stakes. You obviously have a full pantheon of superheroes. You got the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, you got all these characters. It's a bit different. It's never going to fully live up to that, but I still found this an incredibly enjoyable movie, and Tony's a large part of that because he is such a captivating part of this movie. The other thing that I like about this movie is even when he does come around and, you know, that sort of morally gray, he comes around and is like, I will actually help you, Captain America, even though we disagree on this, still showing that as a hero. He is still the villain of the third act because of his fight with Bucky and Cap. But it's still just it makes so much sense though, because yes, Bucky was brainwashed, but as Tony says, that was his mum, you know, that's his parents. It's for a hero, and I think that's what I like about Tony. For a hero, you know, we've seen his anxieties, we've seen all this other stuff. He has such human decisions for a guy that is supposed to be above all that. So yeah, I 100% put this in A tier. Okay, going on, Spider-Man Homecoming. What do you think?
just purely for the lack of Tony in this movie, because it's more, he's actually more relegated to being like a background and a side character. And then also because of how little he's in this movie, he's used very heavy-handedly as more of a foil for Peter, or a disciplinary father figure, even though he, like we've said in another video, you know, he's basically giving him all of these tools that you really shouldn't give a teenage boy. But I don't know, I'm just going to straight up put this in a C. I think we didn't really get enough of him to make a fair judgment. I think we're only really seeing one side of him, which is basically just like a grouchy, irresponsible father figure. What do you think?
100%. I don't have much else to add. I think he's also just a bit of a hypocrite in this after the last couple of movies he's been in. So, I mean, like, also, like, if you can't be a hero without suit, don't wear the suit. I mean, I get it, you know, Iron Man 3 or whatever, that one where he wasn't in the suit, I totally get it. But also...
But his thing is mainly having a suit and a lot of money.
Yeah, and also, you gave him the suit. Like, you gave him the suit. Why give him the suit? Whatever. Like, it's, there's no... I just feel like this is the most off-brand Tony is in the series for me.
Fair call.
All right, next up, Infinity War. Now, I've got a bit of a hot take about this movie. He is a big part of this movie. He is undeniably a big part of this movie. I don't feel strong about any of Tony's character arc in this.
No, same.
There's nothing, like, he has a big part in terms of moving the plot forward. He, you know, gets the heroes united on the ship to Titan, and he fights, and him and Thanos they do genuinely have a good speech, because it's finally the showdown of all of his anxieties. It's just, you know, in saying that, it's the showdown of all of his anxieties. I would have expected there to be more Tony Stark in this, but it's just like, yes, he is great in this movie, but there's just nothing to chew on with it, if that makes sense. What are your thoughts on Infinity War?
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. So it's really unique with, I guess, these two movies for the most part. I do have different thoughts on Endgame, but for Infinity War specifically, it's really interesting how this movie juggles so many characters, like dozens of characters that we've seen for years throughout the MCU. And it does that so well, and everyone plays to their character and their personalities, and it really works. It could have been an absolute clusterfuck, but it wasn't. However, I think because there's so many characters in it, obviously some of them get more screen time than others, but it still feels almost impossible for there to be any real character development or any focus on one particular character, because that would just take away. The movie would just start to fall apart. So I think that there's some really great and iconic moments. I love the standoff between him and Thanos on Titan, and, you know, their little exchange there. But honestly, like, he doesn't necessarily stand out any more or less than any of the other characters in this movie.
I think of Infinity War as a Thanos movie.
100%, exactly. Yeah, that's a really great way of putting it. So, God, this is tough.
It sucks, but I'm almost thinking B. Like, it doesn't belong in A for Iron Man specifically.
I was more or less grappling between C and B. I think B because there's nothing wrong with his portrayal. Like, they nail everything, but do we get enough to be able to put it in B? But I think we do.
Well, if we put it in B, we're putting it with Age of Ultron, Iron Man 3, and Avengers 1. Do you really put Iron Man in this movie compared to those?
I'm kind of stumped here. Everything on Titan alone, I think is enough for me to keep it in B.
Okay.
But I think if it weren't for Titan, absolutely not.
And just you know, for anyone listening, if you've just started listening now in the video, we do like Infinity War. Like, Infinity War is one of my favorite MCU movies.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites too.
It's easy S tier, but as an Iron Man flick, I think B tier is totally fair.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, the last one on our list, Avengers Endgame. I wonder why this is the last one with Iron Man in it. I gotta say, I do really enjoy Iron Man in this. Now that, you know, Thanos has had his movie, this one is definitely back to being about the Avengers. It's a payoff to the Infinity Saga. And for Tony, we get this drop kick at the start of the movie, and then, you know, like, drop kick, he's just survived, but he's having mental breakdowns. It's all the best bits of his anxiety from, you know, Iron Man 3 and all the other previous movies where he's been grappling with this issue, just brought to the forefront. And, you know, is his attacking cap, is mad at everyone, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Then we transition to the guy that doesn't want to be involved, which I almost find it entertaining that when the Earth is at its least mentally stable Tony's life is at its most mentally stable. You know, like he has found.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of putting it. I haven't thought of it that way.
Yeah, like when the Earth is truly, you know, depressed and lost all hope, Tony sort of builds, he's a builder, he's an engineer, he does what he can, he builds a life and doesn't want to be involved in anything. And then the hero's call for Tony. He has a perfect, like, you know, hero's core character arc within this, and then he is finally the guy that, like in the first Avengers movie, he sacrifices everything. I think this is an easy A tier for me.
Yeah, this is straight up, it would be a crime to put this anywhere else but A, because the sacrifice alone, I think, is incredible. It feels like a full circle moment where the whole time he's fighting for what could happen or what he fears could happen. And to try and protect his friends, his colleagues, all that shit, you know, the people at work and all that, and obviously the people, but it's now completely personal for him. The whole reason why he's wanting to do this is, well, the whole reason why he didn't want to do it is like he's got a second chance. He's got his family. He got Pepper back because they kind of split up at one point throughout the MCU. He's got a kid. He's a completely changed man. So the battle that he's grappling with is a completely new battle that we haven't seen from him, which I think is crazy considering this is like a character that's 10 years like in the making.
Yeah.
He ultimately sacrifices himself because there's no other choice, but he does it so that way those he loves and his family that he wanted to be with could see another day.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really powerful. So even though this was an ensemble movie, it felt more focused on the original core Avengers, like you said, and I thought that was brilliant. So yeah, I think this is an A.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and just seeing his to see him transition from Iron Man 1, you know, his very first scene, to maybe his last scene in this, completely different characters, but it's earned, it's paved its way through, you know, his anxieties, through, you know, stuff like Iron Man 3, through to Avengers, through the Age of Ultron, and then into Civil War, you know, skipping over Homecoming and Infinity War, but then into Endgame. It's a great end to that whole arc that he's been on of anxieties and is he protecting the world enough, and he ends up, you know, fulfilling that whole I will sacrifice myself for this world. Now, the big, obviously, this tier list has been geared towards the negative because we were forgetting about S tier. We've got 3 A tiers to argue about. We've got Iron Man 1, Captain America Civil War, and Avengers Endgame. Give me one that you want to cut out of this race.
Yeah, okay, cool. I was hoping we'd do it this way. So zooming out and looking at each of those 3 movies and performances and story arcs for Tony. Yeah. I almost feel like I want to get rid of Civil War just because the start of his character is incredibly compelling to me, and we see his whole it's story focused just on him and his development. And yeah, I think it was a powerful performance, and I also think that his finale and his ending is also just as incredibly powerful. So I reckon, even though I really love Civil War, I think when you compare it to those other 2, I'm going to get rid of that one.
Yeah, an honorable mention, while we're deleting it from the list, I do really like that Bucky and Cap versus Iron Man scene at the end. Like his emotions playing through that, especially at the end, you know, that's my father's shield, that whole thing. Great. That's great. But yeah, it's not the best. All right, so now it's up to me to decide between Iron Man 1 and Avengers Endgame. And I'm going to do a redemption round because it's Spider-Man Homecoming, because I really enjoyed that scene where he's remotely piloting the suit and you can see the suit sort of holding a glass of alcohol because he's drinking while he's in India or wherever he is. That's the winner. No. Okay, seriously. I think this is a pretty easy decision, to be honest. Like, it is a shame because Iron Man 1 is a masterpiece, but I'm going to have to cut Iron Man 1 just because of the emotional weight. Yeah, I know. And it's the most comic accurate, and you know me, sucker for that. It's the most comic accurate Iron Man. And yes, we get a full story arc and everything like that. But I know we are sort of meant to be judging these things in a vacuum, but you can't just delete the emotional bearing of 10 years of cinema from seeing all these arcs sort of play off. Because you watch him in Avengers Endgame and you think back to him freaking out at the team in Age of Ultron. You think back to him in Civil War. You think back to him in Infinity War even. you can't delete that from this movie.
It wouldn't mean
experience.
anything or as much without that history.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, okay, well, it sounds a bit silly because I bet some people might have been able to guess this at the top of the video, but the best Iron Man is the one where he dies in, the classic scene of him dying in it. Excellent. All right, well, thank you guys for listening. We'll be back next week with some idea that I pull out of my ass, but
Yeah, we've got no idea at this point.
but yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, that is Avengers Endgame for S tier spot, solo S tier spot for Tony Stark Iron Man.
Does Tony Stark have like a catchphrase? Like, you know how like some superheroes like fly in the air?
Yeah, it's
Like-
gotta helmet up.
Gotta
Gotta
helmet
blast.
on
That's Jimmy
in the
Neutron.
sky.
Gotta blast.
Helmets on.
All right. See you guys. Bye.